Normally, you might know me from doing the initial presentation, so it's kind of weird being the last one. So who am I, and why I'm talking to you? So I'm Marc. I'm originally from Barcelona, and I'm an alcoholic. Now, that last part is true. I'm one of the organizers of London DevOps with Matt, and I've also organized this year DevSecOps Days in London. So we're going to do it again next year, so hopefully you will come. I've been doing DevOps for a long time. The first time that I did DevOps, it was with Matt in a company that he interviewed me for back in 2009.
2010? Yeah, 2009.
2009, yeah. So back then it was called WebOps, and it was all the cool thing, but nobody was doing it. So I now work for this company called DevOpsGroup. That question? Yeah, actually we're hiring. Thank you for asking. Yeah. So yeah, if you want to know more, just let me know afterwards. So I deal with a lot of different companies that say, okay, this DevOps thing is very cool, where I can buy it. Can you give me 10 DevOps? And then you have to go in and tell them that that's not actually what it's about. It's more like a journey, right? So you start the journey. So you're here looking at this stream, but DevOps is up that mountain. And companies, when they come to you, they look fairly lost. They don't know how to get there. And I know people here, most of you have done the journey or are doing the journey. But what I hope is that this talk will actually get something useful to all of you. There's some, I would say most of the things maybe you already know, but nonetheless, I'll speak through everything. So you're pretty ready to go. You have your boots, you just bought them. They're called DevOps Boots, of course. But you have a lot of different questions, right? So how about uptime? I have this server with 400 days and I don't want to reboot it. It's like that's maybe old school joke. How much this will cost? So how much does cost one DevOps? Right? What about compliance? I have to be compliant with 25 different ISOs. How do I do that with DevOps? What about old software? What about with the current provider contracts that I cannot cancel? Can we uptrain all current engineers to do DevOps? What about my job position? Will it change? I will be fired. What happens with that? What about the outsourced team based in some remote country? How can we work with them doing DevOps? How can we hire new people competing against big players? Because, of course, everybody's doing DevOps now. And if they don't, they will start doing DevOps very soon. So you're competing against everyone else to get DevOps engineers, right? How to get on board the C-level executives, because the first thing they will ask is that how much this will cost and when will you deliver this? And it's not an easy question to answer, right? How this will affect my business as usual? Will I get more downtime? Will I actually break my current business model by doing this? And how this will align with ITIL? You wouldn't believe how many times I've got that question. We're doing ITIL right now. How can I do ITIL and DevOps at the same time? So the good news is that we know what good looks like, right? So if you look at the State of DevOps survey that was done this year, you will see that nowadays you can pretty much match people in 4 different groups. And they created this new group called Elite. And I think that's a bit like Top Gun, slightly too macho, I don't know. But nonetheless, you have all these 4 groups. So right, the Elite group is doing on-demand deployment, so they can deploy anytime they fancy. The time for any change to go live, it takes less than 1 hour, which is pretty awesome. And the time to restore the service is also less than 1 hour, which is also very awesome, right? And the change failure rate, which I think that's the biggest quality metric that you can have, is from 0 to 15%. So they do very high quality job very fast. So how do they do that? One of the main things that you might hear about anytime somebody talks about DevOps, Jane Kims comes on the stage and says, calm, keep calm and carry on. So CAMS is the basic pillars of DevOps, right? So it would be culture, automation, of course, lean, just keep things simple, keep things lean, measurement, measure everything from the start, and sharing. It's very important as well. Share everything that you know, share all the culture, share all the new things that you learn, spread the love around, right? So all of that are the basic DevOps values. And if you look at them a bit more in depth, you can see that sharing and measurement is a way of learning, right? It's a way of that internal training and internal learning journey. Knowing your people better, knowing your business better. And if you look at automation and lean, it's a way of optimizing. And all that optimization at the end of the day makes you faster to market, makes you also lean in the way that you spend less to get there. Less money, less resource, less time. So the big news is that change creates tension. So who here has had tension with change? I would say everyone, right? It's very scary. Brexit, oh my God, what's happening here? So it's any kind of change creates tension. We are people that like change, but in controlled steps. We don't like sudden change and everything just changing under our feet, right? So if you look at the DevOps model, people, process, and tools, right? So all of these are in a way interconnected by a rubber band, or that's what I always say to people. If you change one of them, you advance one of them, the rubber band starts to get tighter and tighter, and that creates tension with the other two. So what's the trick? It's trying to get the three of them going up at the same time, which is difficult. But if you have to choose, if you have to dedicate some time to this, remember that people is always first. People is the most important thing that you can do. Then processes, in order to enable that people to use all the shiny tooling that you care too much about, let's be honest. So it's important, the tooling is not that important. What is important is that you get the right people with the right processes, everybody agrees on it, and then you find the right tooling to do what you need to do. And if it's not on the market, you create it, and then you have another product on the market. So you're there, you're ready on the field, ready to go, ready to get that mountain. It still looks quite scary. But the first thing that everybody goes like, all right, we'll just create a new DevOps team, we'll forget about the rest of the company, and we'll use Chef and Ansible and everything else, because that's what we heard for, right? So that should be okay. But what people forget about is understanding where you are, understanding where your teams are, because if you just create a new team and start throwing all this technology at it, the rest of the company will feel like you forgot about them, and they will start to feel, I would say, if they had some illusion of change getting to them, they will forget about that in the first 6 minutes. So it's very important to know where your teams are. So whenever I go to a company, it's like, all right, let's sit down, talk with everyone, get everyone to tell us where they are, where do they stand, what kind of things do they like. So starting by the application portfolio. You're a dev team, what applications are you managing, what are you responsible for? What development methodology are you using? Are you using Waterfall? Are you using Java? Are you using COBOL? I don't know. I would like to know that. What kind of dependencies do you have? Do you depend on this company that stopped producing software 10 years ago? And if so, why? What processes do you have inside every single team? So you wouldn't believe, even if were companies like big companies that have all these processes in mind, every single team have different processes because they forget about the global process of the company and they do their own thing because it works for them, right? So it's important to know how they do things and how can you help them. The deployment methodology, what do they do to deploy? And you get all kinds of answers. So I'll give you one of a very fancy insurance comparison engine with a very big guy that likes to sing opera. When I talked with them and they said, okay, we're going to deploy, so they presented me the deployment lady. Very nice lady. She's like, yeah, I get all the files from this server and I start copying them manually onto all these servers, then I restart the service. It's like, all right, so how long does it take you to do that? It's like a couple hours. So when do you start to do your deployments? No, I drive from home around 3 a.m. Like, all right, that sounds good. So what happens if it takes 4 hours instead of 2? Like, I guess I'll come here by 1 a.m. Right? So that's the kind of things that you need to know because nobody will tell you. Oops, there you go. Also, it's important to know the internal team dependency. So every single team, who do you depend on? Who do you serve to? What teams do you communicate with? The general satisfaction. Are you happy with what you're doing? What are the things that you're unhappy about? What are the things that, if you had complete power of the company, what would you change? You get all kinds of answers, but the good thing is that you start to get some trends into that, which are the global trends of any company. What's the will to change? So I'm coming here, I'm this consultant that I'm going to talk about DevOps. So do you want to do DevOps? Do you really care? You don't care? How does it affect your end today? What worries you, right? And also knowing the knowledge bottlenecks. So who here knows the guy that comes in at 2 a.m., saves the day on their own, and then don't tell anyone how they fix things? I know at least one of those, right? So that's your knowledge bottlenecks. That guy, the hero, is a bottleneck. Because that guy, the day that he's not there, just because everybody needs holidays from time to time, or just being around London, maybe he's run over by a bicycle or a bus or anything else, then you lose all that knowledge. So it's important to understand that those guys, those heroes, that they're doing good for the company, they're also a problem. And you need to get that knowledge from them. Let them keep being awesome, but let someone else also help out. Also, the other important thing, whenever you start any kind of change process, you need to have a vision, a mission, and a deadline. And this is not only for everyone that doesn't know what you're doing on your day-to-day, it's also for the business. So the C-level people need this to understand what you're doing. The vision statement is normally a one phrase, right? I want to rule the world. That's a vision statement, right? That didn't go so well for some people, but you might get it away with, I don't know. Then that's the thing that will inspire people to get in the journey with you. The mission statement tells them how you will get there. And of course, you cannot be that precise because you don't really know yet how you will get on top of that mountain, right? But you can say, well, more or less, we'll try to do automation, and we'll try to do retraining, and change the way teams work, blah, blah, blah. So that mission statement normally should be around the paragraph, and also said it's something that should inspire you. And of course, have some deadlines. Deadlines that should be more or less flexible. You shouldn't be too strict with them, but it's important for the business to know when I will get this, right? Because if you say it will take you 6 months to deliver and it takes you 2 years, you're failing. Whereas if you say it will take you 2 years and it takes 1 year, you're a genius. So it's important to give that deadlines and keep that expectation of the business under control. So then you get all of these, you get your vision, you are inspiring people with this, and then you need to start creating a plan. So any kind of plan that I create, the first 3 months, it's completely clear. I know exactly what I need to do. I have my backlog, I have everything ready. I know the deadlines of when things should be going through. But the most important thing, I'm already starting to measure everything. I'm starting to measure the velocity of the teams. I'm starting to measure the deliverables, when I will deliver them compared to what I expected. And also, I have an open feedback process, right? Because any kind of change can go wrong. Any kind of change, even with the best of wills, will have some problem or we have some objection. So it's important to know those as early as you can. And in order to either tackle them, so someone is just fearing something that is not actually true, or in order to change the way you're doing things to include people. Then the next 3 months, you have more, I would say, the next step objective. So after we do this, we have blah, 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 this, and that, and aspirational timeline. So we'll do this more or less around Q2, but don't be too precise because you wouldn't believe how much things change in 3 months. And the first year, of course, it should be aspirational objectives. By the third year, we should be already be #1 in the market. But we don't know when, but we'll just try to get there in 1 year. And the years afterwards, if you have to define everything, or if you have such a long-term plan, aspirational are everything. So in 2 years, we should be recruiting 100 new people. We should be #1 in our space, or we should be getting this much money from customers, etc. So it's good to have those aspirational goals where people can actually go and look at them and be inspired by your mission, right? And all of this space that is here, that I've left blank on purpose, that's where your dragons are, right? That's where your day-to-day, your problems, your issues, people complaining, key people leaving because they don't agree with you or because Google offered them 3 times the money. That's the kind of problems that you have to face. So you're getting there, you have your mission, you're getting people to start walking, starting to jump through the first hurdles. So what kind of things can you do next, right? So first of all is define a target operating model, and that's one of the first things you need to do. The target operating model should be the way things should work. Maybe it's something that will change just a tiny bit. Maybe it's a complete redesign of the whole company. But it's important to understand that from the beginning. And get new ways of working, right? So reduce human error. So we all have written these shell scripts. We all have done all these things that follow this Excel spreadsheet in order to install server number 3. We've all done this at some point in our careers. And of course, we shouldn't be doing that anymore, because as humans, whenever we do things repeatedly, we get bored. We get bored to death because it's not fun. It's not challenging. So try to reduce as much as you can of that, right? It might be impossible to reduce all of it, but try to get away with as much as you can. Reduce repetitive poopy tasks. Automate early. Automate as early as you can. Shift contribution towards valuable engineering. So everybody here wants to be going to work every single day, provide valuable ideas, provide valuable projects. That's what we want to do. We don't want to be writing this patch for this COBOL server from 20 years ago, or in my case, editing the accountancy software because the developer left. So we don't want to do that. We want to do very cool stuff, right? So we can come to these kind of meetups and show it afterwards. And of course, shift left security. Security is key. You wouldn't believe how many companies won't talk about the kind of security problems they had. And that's just because when they develop something, they go, oh yeah, we developed this awesome thing. So how about compliance and security? We'll start doing that now. It's like, okay, you designed the whole application, you did everything, and you didn't think about security. So it would be like creating this awesome car and having no locks in the doors, like, yeah, we'll just put this padlock, it's fine. Should be okay. And increase governance, standardize outputs, right? So in order to get things under control in a way, so it's important to get things to a place where everybody understands what everybody else is doing. So having some governance, some basic rules, like if you do this, try to do RESTful API. If you're doing that, try to put it in a container, or that kind of stuff, right? And standardize the output. So everything will be outputted as JSON, or as YAML, or God forbid XML. But you have the choice to do that. So it's important to standardize all of that so everybody knows what to expect. Then you need to start instigating the new organizational culture. Reduce silos and bottlenecks. So everybody has some kind of photo of silos getting destroyed and all kinds of things about that, which is bad for the farming industry. But in reality, we should stop having silos. And if you create a DevOps team, you're creating a new silo, so it's not great. So try to get everyone to collaborate. So do things like Spotify, for example, and reduce the bottlenecks. Get those heroes, get those people that refuse to share knowledge, get the knowledge out of them. Reduce those bottlenecks, because those will hurt you whenever you have a bad situation. Create appropriate teams. Short-lived is necessary. So one of the best things, and one of the most scary things that the companies look at you in the eyes like, are you serious about this? Create teams just for a month. Create teams just for a couple months. Once that team has finished the project, disseminate the people of the team across other teams. And why should I do that? That's crazy. We've never done that before, because that's one of the best ways to spread knowledge. That's one of the best ways to get people to talk. Make things easy. So I had a good friend that wrote this package called FPM. Has somebody used FPM to create packages? It's very nice. But one of the things that he says, and I completely agree with him, is that if somebody doesn't understand your tool, if somebody doesn't understand what you're doing, it's a bug. It's not that someone is stupid. It's a bug. It's a problem. You need to fix that problem. You need to make things usable. So I still know a lot of engineers that laugh at people. Look at him. He doesn't know how to use this. Like, that's your problem. That's not his problem. You need to fix it. And get constant feedback. Those feedback loops won't happen with the business as usual. Create the occasions, create the opportunities, create the spaces for that feedback. Or any kind of culture, any kind of process is always open to change. If somebody tells you, we're not doing this kind of thing here because that's not our culture, it's not true. Culture changes. Culture changes all the time. We're not doing the same things that we did as a society 100 years ago. So things evolve, things change. So here's an example of a target operating model. Of course, you've all seen already this Spotify model, right? Where they keep creating teams and they have all these different squads and they keep changing that by project. And it's very awesome because at the end of the day, everybody knows the platform fairly well. But the most important thing, don't copy any model. Don't go online and get, hey, I got this amazing model. I'm going to use it exactly as it is. And every single company is a precious snowflake. Every single company has its problems, has its virtues, has all these different things that make the company what it is. understand how to create the model for you. So inspire yourself in all the models that you see out there, but don't copy them just as they are, because that will never work. So in order to get people on board, it's like, okay, you're coming here, you're telling me to change all of this, you're telling me that I won't lose my job, but I don't trust you. So what's the important thing? Put people always first. People, people, people. Stop looking at tools and thinking about how awesome CloudFormation is, which is not. People always first. Identify your champions. There will be people that will be very excited about what you're doing. These are your champions. These are the people that will push things forward. These are the people that will evangelize inside the company about what you're doing. It's important to identify them. Create short-lived spikes to spread knowledge and culture. So, for example, who here has done a brown bag session? Yeah? Brown bag sessions, they're very useful. They're very good spikes of culture. There's other companies that what they do is that once a month they create 1 day of sharing knowledge. Like, everybody stop. During this day, we're just talking about what we've done. And we're going to explain that to the rest of the engineering team or to the rest of the company. So create those occasions. They won't happen on their own. You need to make them happen. Ensure that people are happy with direction and decisions. So you might have the most wonderful idea, but if nobody cares or nobody understands, you will not get things done, ever. So it's important to understand what motivates people. How do you get people on board? And then I'm going to talk a little bit about application transformation. I'm sure you know all of these, but I'm just going to say it nonetheless. Chisel away the monolith. So one of the first applications that I had to migrate back in 1994 was an application on an AS400 server. It wasn't pretty, but that was a huge monolith, and I created another huge monolith back then. So it's not great, because every time you need to deploy, it's very complex. I need to do all these different steps to deploy. I need to call this. I need to wait for our chicken. I need to call security just in case somebody tries to break in the building and kill me. There's all these things that you need to do. So reduce complexity. Make certain that the workloads that you're deploying are at a respectable size, that there's enough change, but not enough for it to be complex. Design applications to fail gracefully. So this is one of the ones that people forget, especially people like me that have been doing things the old way for way too much time. Like, yeah, I'll design this, and if this doesn't work, I'll just raise an error. That's it. End of story, end of the road. In reality, that's wrong. You need to ensure that any error that happens, you have a way to remediate it, or you have a way to fix it, or make certain that people don't realize that you actually have an error. Ensure availability of external dependencies. So I've also seen teams and companies do all this amazing work, keeping things balanced and graceful, and they fail in a very nice way. But then they go to the card payment provider, and they just have one, and they cannot get any cards in because the payment provider just failed. So ensure that those external dependencies are also kept a look on. If you have just one, try to get a couple. Try to understand how do they do the graceful failure as well, what kind of things they will feed back to you. And focus on reducing the blast radius. That's what this is about, right? Any kind of error, it's an explosion inside your application or inside your business. Try to reduce the damage that that explosion is doing to your business. So just quickly, if you look at applications, you have very much these three kinds of applications, and I'm guilty of the three of them personally. So you have robust, fragile, and anti-fragile. So any kind of robust application would be like a castle. Very strong on the outside, very sturdy, very difficult to build. It takes years or prisoners of war and slaves to actually build them. So it's very difficult. And as soon as they break the wall, you're screwed, because they're already in, they can just do whatever they want. Right? So these kind of applications, as I said, they are the typical monolith applications. Then you have the snowflake applications, and these might be because they are already end of life, or the developers left because they got bored or they didn't get paid. But your business still depends on them. So I know some very big businesses that the main application, nobody knows how it works, and everybody's too scared to touch it. Right? And that's what makes them money. And there's the anti-fragile applications. So all the things that Kubernetes and all the Dockers and all the Amazons and all the Azures and all of this is doing is pushing you towards creating these anti-fragile applications. Applications that if something fails, there's an immediate feedback process that just spins another one up or catches this error and does something. So as the Hydra, whenever you try to kill a head, 2 new heads grow. So for continuous delivery, I said automate testing as much as possible, which I'm certain you already do. Differentiate between internal and external quality. And this is one that people forget about, right? So whenever they say, I'm going to automate all the testing, so I don't need any QA team. That's not true. So the QA people are your external quality, because they are the ones that represent your customers. They are the ones that will test your applications in the same way that the customers will use it. So automate all your testing by sector, all your testing works, but still rely on the QA team to give you the external quality. Concentrate on test coverage and make tests meaningful. So it's not a competition. It's not, I get 100% test coverage, but actually my tests do nothing. It's important that every single test that is there is meaningful, and especially it's business-oriented, right? There's a lot of people that forget that the code is actually running a business. So it's important that those tests cover the business cases. For continuous deployment, deployment should not be scary or special. You don't need a deployment lady that comes at 2 a.m. to do your deployments. Deployment should be something that's just the day-to-day of your business. Make deployments as automatic as you can. If a deployment is too scary still, you can keep a button that says deploy, but that's it. You shouldn't be doing more. Always have an automatic rollback or roll forward strategy. So any kind of deployment, you should have an exit plan. If you don't have an exit plan, or you don't know what the exit plan is, start doing drills. Drill out all your operations teams, drill out all your dev teams. Ensure an audit trail of deployments as well, because the more you do microservices, the more you chisel away the monolith, the more complexity across those dependencies and those services happen. So it can happen that you deploy 1, 2, and the third service suddenly causes something. And it's important to know that chain of causality. All right, so at this point, you're getting kind of cocky. You're almost there. You're going like, hey, look, man, no hands, and I'm just here at almost the top of the mountain. But the important thing to understand is that this is an iterative process. So it's not something that I'm going to do DevOps and in 2 days I'm doing DevOps. You need to keep iterating. You need to keep having that feedback loop, keep changing and improving your culture as well. Because at the end of the day, you reach that mountaintop, but hey, all these things, you can use them for anything else as well, right? So there's that bigger mountain over there that you need to start going through. Because that bigger mountain might be the Kubernetes cluster, or might be anything else that you want to do. So in summary, change is hard, as we all know. It always creates tension of some kind. Understand where your teams are. So understand what's the initial position of every single team. What do they care about? Have a mission, vision, and a plan. Measure everything and get feedback early. Create a target operating model, putting people always first. That's very important. Transform your applications to be anti-fragile where possible. If you cannot do it, then try to reduce the blast radius. Automation and testing are key. And reduce the fear of deployment and rollback by automation. Automate it, practice it, drill it out. And the job is never finished. Keep iterating, keep changing, because that's why we get paid, to have fun and keep going at it. If you want to read some books, I'm sure you all read the Phoenix Project already. I would recommend the DevOps Handbook, which is very cool because it just covers everything about DevOps. So there's some of the things there that I either forgot about or didn't use. So it's good to refresh that knowledge. And a seat at the table, if you're C-level, if you're a manager, this one I think is super useful. And if you're starting your transformation or you're starting to go through your journey, I cannot recommend enough Flow. It's very funny to read. It tells you all these kind of exercises, practices that you can do in order to get people along and do change. But remember, big change is like trying to turn a huge boat. It will take time. It will take effort. You might think that it's not turning, but at the end of the day, you will turn it. But yeah, so thank you, and those are the sponsors. And that's it.